Yeah, I'm very serious about that title. Shaun of the Dead is still definitively my favourite zombie comedy, but Zombieland went down a more profound route that stuck with me for a very different reason. And that was Rule 32. Enjoy the little things. It sounds so simple because it is. The story is told through the perspective of Jesse Eisenberg's Columbus, who is a socially awkward introvert who admits to spending most of his nights home alone playing video games because he's basically scared of everything else in the real world. And I can empathize with that. That's why his bond with Tallahassee becomes the centerpiece of the film. As a result of this ridiculous zombie apocalypse, it's forced Columbus to embrace the real world, and fundamentally, the film becomes more about his journey into a social life.
You know, you're like a penguin on the North Pole. Here's the South Pole. It's really nice this time of year.
There are no penguins on the North Pole.
You want to feel how hard I can punch?
The zombies are merely just a backdrop to the film's life-affirming tone. Tallahassee is a composed, nonchalant guy who sees the beauty in small things like recklessly messing stuff, playing with guns, and of course, finding that rare exotic Twinkie.
Words cannot express.
It's too soon.
Of course, that sounds strange in reality given we can't just do what we want, but in context to the world presented by the film, he practically shows Columbus that once you listen up and enjoy small victories and intimate moments in life, there isn't anything to fear because fear is abstract and fear is beatable, as the film proves. This all happens in a world where there is everything to fear. It's a grim situation where friends and family are dead and all hope is lost, but the film chooses never to linger on it. Instead, in a grounded sense, it has its characters swallow their misfortunes and make the most of where they are now in this very moment.
What do you think? Zombie kill of the week?
That's not to say that poignancy and hardships aren't given their necessary acknowledgement. Tallahassee attempts to repress his memories of his dead son by trying to soften his awareness for his past. He doesn't let go of it because despite the tragedy inflicted on his life, he uses his memories to strongly and boldly accept the world and carelessly live every moment with release and satisfaction. It points out that life is short and unexpected, and really, it should be treated like a wild ride where the destination is inevitable and we don't have to worry about that until we finally get to it. We take life for granted and moan and complain about everything when those little satisfactions and luxuries do so much for our perception on things regardless of how dire we feel. In fact, the introduction is all about taking things for granted, like the girl being stingy with her bullets or the mother who doesn't wear a seatbelt. I mean, it sounds like a lot of over-precaution, but it does play into our nature as clumsy and flawed humans. I think that's kind of the beauty with Bill Murray. His death isn't tragic, it's played off as a laugh. He accepts it and has no regrets with any decisions he's made in life, even the one that stupidly gets him killed. Well, except Garfield.
I'm sorry, it just gets me. But it still is sad.
The rules begin contextually as anxiety-driven survival tactics, but by the end, after everything Columbus has learned from the other characters, they effectively become recontextualized as tips that allowed him to literally get the most out of life. Zombieland never becomes a genre piece per se. It's basically a partial coming-of-age story that enlightens the viewer to stop taking things so seriously because ultimately, they're insignificant in the grand scheme of things. The story is inconsequential because the destination is unfulfilling, which makes seeing them drive off at the end remind us that the journey really matters more. What I love about Zombieland is that it never becomes this shallow story about finding hope and salvation or coming to terms with human extinction. What's the point in relishing in that when what takes precedence to the characters is accepting that the good comes with the bad? So the moral of the story is, don't submit unwillingly. Live life like this ridiculous, unpredictable ride because really all these problems and concerns aren't going to stop you. Because they haven't stopped me.